Comes down off the table, thinks it's over. He's a head taller than the doctor. He cracks his back with a boxer's twist. Beer, then. Forget it. I don't feel badly. You people never do. That's the way liquor kills you, telling you nothing's wrong. Alcohol is 100% fatal. Jesus, doctor, I was weaned on the stuff. My father died drinking his pipe. Are you surprised by that? Asked the doctor. Later that day, Deco climbs the hill to the barn behind the house. Will, the stable boy, is standing there watching Deco come towards him, a stalk of grass in his mouth. The boy's worked for Deco for 3 years. Without knowing why, Deco tells the boy he's finished. He has a whole list of complaints. The mare's stall wasn't mucked out properly. Tools have gone missing. There's no cap to the liniment. The boy can't believe what he's hearing. It's for your own good, Deco tells him. They're standing in the middle of the barn with stalls on either side of them. The boy is near tears, glancing around at the horse he's cared for. Deco goes over to the spigot and washes his hands up to his forearms. Racing ponies is a sickness, Deco tells him. He flicks water on the sawdust. Look what it's done to me. You don't want this life. I'm doing you a favor. You're 17. Go find what you're supposed to be doing. Go on, Deco roars. I'll send along your wages. The boy ducks, thinking the bigger man is about to hit him. After dinner, his wife says, it's your business. I've stayed clear. They're sitting in the kitchen under a yellow light. I've not changed my mind, Deco tells her. No, she says, I know that. You did this to that other boy, Sean. This catches Deco by surprise. Then he remembers. Do you know what this is about, she asks. He hasn't told her about the doctor. He's left the whiskey in the pantry cupboard. His hands grip a water glass. Her hair is gathered back and pinned up like a dancer. She's small and wiry. The only thing moving is her eyes. Her limbs are thin and straight. I'll take good care of him, Deco offers. What are you going to do now, she asks. All morning, Deco works in the office built off the porch. There are papers everywhere. They spill out of cubby holes and cover every flat surface. Deco is a handicapper, one of the best. Somewhere among the heaps is a record of every thoroughbred race from Saratoga to Hialeah going back 50 years. With a carpenter's pencil behind his ear, he's looking up the sire lines of the horses put down to race in the season. It's his gift that he can weave a story from the numbers and cryptic comments on the racing foreman. It's here in the bloodline where she's got the shoulders that make her a champion, or the knees come down from the dam side, or the grand dam gave him the little burst of speed at the end, the extra capacity in the lungs. He hears the telephone ring in the kitchen and his wife knocks on the door. It's Cleveland, she says. I've got a yearling, Deco, Cleveland says, causing me no end of trouble. I can't keep his head from rising. Can you take a look? Cleveland Beard operates Tamarack Farms, a few hills over. It's a large operation, big even for the state. How's your mare healing up? Cleveland asks. In Deco's mind, he owns a few horses, small time. He's got nothing but change in the bottom of his pockets. My wife doesn't think she'll be ready in time. Shame, then, the money you put in. She's 4. If I don't race her this season, I don't know how I'll get my money out. What about breeding her, Deco? I could sell you a cover with my horse Impertinence. Jesus, Cleveland, Impertinence? He's all I hear about. I don't have coin for that stud fee. Deco, with all you've done, tight as you are with $1, I think we could figure something out. We're both old fools. Now you're embarrassing me. I'm a small dirt farmer, barely able to buy feed. You got 4 barns, a staff, and even a garage for your tractors. I play in the margins. When Deco hangs up the phone, he wonders if once again he isn't raising false hope. After supper, Deco walks out to the barns where he finds Parker, the Negro he's hired part-time, mucking out one of the stalls. The overhead light casts a theatrical pall to the apron in front of the barn. The two men nod at each other. Parker leans against the shovel. You shouldn't have hired young Will, Mr. Cahill. He was a good boy. Aye, mind your business, Parker. How is she? Only just got her, but she's mad about something. Deco goes inside the barn and rests a gumboot on the low rail, peering into the paddock. He shakes his head. Aye, she's pissed all right, showing me her rear end. Parker joins him. She misses Will. Probably right, Deco whistles. He reaches into his reefer jacket for sugar. The filly looks back over his shoulder, then flicks her tail. When Parker finishes, he says goodbye, leaving Deco staring in at nobody's listening. She's a sorrel male of a good line. Her coat has been brushed until it has the burl of fine chestnut. Her mane is braided. She has a rump that rises slightly higher than her shoulders, so she has the power of her grand dam Nobody's counting. Deco named the mare for his son, a thing his son used to say around the barn before he was lost in Korea. The bats have come out, and they jitter and keel, swooping further and further out over the meadow. A stillness settles over the fields, and the moon appears behind dark branches. Deco begins talking to the horse, his voice as low as the wind, saying things he would never say to a person. Before leaving, he flicks on the light over the stall. It will shine all night, lengthening the days and hastening the mating season. A black Buick stops in front of a filling station just long enough for Deco to jump out. The boy pumping gas watches as Deco crosses to a row of vehicles parked along the edge of the lot. When he comes to a pale blue Ford truck, Deco lays down both hands, one on top of each other, on the right front fender, just forward of the wheel. He presses down hard as he can and then stands back to watch the trunk bounce. He plucks the flashlight off the fender and rolls sideways to the ground beneath the truck. When he disappears under the chassis, the boy runs into the repair bay. "What the hell are you doing down there, Deco?" Bobby Stimson wants to know. He's propped the hood up on the support rod and stares down past the engine block at Deco lying on the ground. Both men look at each other at the moment, as they always do, remembering that Bobby's daughter went out with Deco's son, and neither man mentioning it. Finally, Deco says, "I'm checking the work on my wife's truck," with a flashlight beam flickering over the wheelbase. Bobby lets his eyes stray over the filling station, the two-bay garage, the island where the cherry red pumps, and the sign with the flying horse. He's wearing coveralls and his hair is greased back. "These new shocks you put in, Bobby? For Christ's sake, the wrapping's still on them. Don't start that again." Bobby stands on his tiptoes so he can see what Deco is doing. "I think you got a cracked bushing here, Bobby," Deco announces. "That's the seam, Deco." "I don't think so, not from here." Bobby listens to the old man scraping along the gravel on his back. Bobby balls up the rag in his fist, and when it's small enough, tucks it neatly into his coverall pocket. "I'm not doing this again, Deco. Last time you raked me over the coals for $5. "I only pay for the work done right," Deco says. "Then take it elsewhere, Deco. I don't want your cars or your trucks. I don't have time." Bobby shuffles away, shaking his head. When the time comes, the harrow, tiller, plow, and baler line the drive. The man from the bank strolls along with the girl, the clipboard, a few steps behind. "Deco, there's too many harrows for sale," the bank man says. But Deco's already gone back up to the house. By January, nobody's listening is healed. The day before Parker takes her out of the barn, his wife comes out of the kitchen, covering her arm in vet lube. Without ceremony, standing on a milking stool, she plunges her arm into the mare up to the shoulder and pronounces ovaries as big as crab apples. Deco calls Cleveland Beard and a price is hammered out. $750, more than twice what Deco has ever paid. At Tamarack Farms, men stand around the breeding shed as nobody's listening is prepared. A length of fence separates the viewing area from the large part of the barn. The mating frenzy of 1,200-pound animals is violent and dangerous. Nobody's listening is lashed to the wall, and one of the local grooms is wrapping her tail in surgical bandage. She's got a low, wide rear, an older trainer observes. Another mentioned that it's a good height for Impertinence, who's 17 hands. Deco's nervous and keeps shifting his weight from foot to foot. All the while he's watching the door, for Impertinence is approaching. The stallion manager who controls the breeding session comes over and has the young groom tie rubber pads to the mare's rear hooves so she won't kick Impertinence if she gets frightened. It's as cold as the bottom of a lake in the breeding shed, and the men stamp their feet. Cleveland Beard, wearing a big raccoon coat and a teacup bowler, has come down and he offers Deco his flask, which Deco politely declines. "Ah, poor thing," Deco says as they lead in the teaser stallion. He's a straightbred with a heavy leather apron hung around his middle to prevent penetration. Nobody's listening glances back once, then lets out a long, low sigh. The stallion is brought closer, sniffing at the mares behind. The men lean forward. The stallion manager lifts the mare's tail. "She's winking," he says, and Impertinence is fetched and the teaser led away. But the banter ceases the moment Impertinence appears trotting down the hill. Being familiar with what happens, Impertinence prances a bit, angling sideways off the lead shank. Steam is streaming off his body, even his legs. Deco doesn't think him a handsome horse. He has a dull fawn coat, and there's a smudge like paint on his Roman nose. But it's his legs that make him a champion. When Deco glances back towards nobody's listening, the groom is slipping the twitch over her ear in case he needs to confront her, to control her. At the entrance to the barn, Impertinence balks. The men are all watching him. Center of attention, he'll make them wait. He extends his nose into the barn and sniffs. "Come on, lads," someone says. "Don't keep the lady waiting." And the men laugh, vapor trailing from their lips. Impertinence takes a few steps in, but he's paying more attention to the men in the viewing area. So far, he's indifferent to the mare. But Nobody's Listening is not without resources. She rises on her hooves, spreading her legs, and squatting delicately, pisses loudly. Her urine, filled with hormones, has an immediate effect. Impertinence responds, dancing forward so that Deco expects him to rear up and get right into it. But he doesn't. He takes a moment and comes forward half a step until he can pass his nose across the area right behind Nobody's Listening. He runs the tip of his nose down along her flank almost tenderly and nuzzles her haunch, siding and coming awkwardly along her side until he can nibble at her shoulder. By this time, Deco is squeezing his hand. Then it's all business, with the stallion stepping back and rearing high, hopping forward towards the mare of his hind legs with his forelegs slash the air. He's roaring and his eyes are rolling and his lips peel back, revealing a great row of teeth. From where Deco is standing, the stallion seems to fill the rafters. He hears the horse roar again as he thrusts. Then there's a horrible bellowing noise as he slides off to the side, flailing in thin air. The men have seen this kind of thing before, but not Deco. In a flash, he's under the rail, scuttling across the floor towards the horses, a groom reaching for his jacket but missing. Deco guides Impertinence with his hands, and the stallion launches himself now, forelegs halfway up the mare's back, his lips flaring. Deco has run behind the stallion, planting himself, extending his arms like Atlas to lift the stallion and hold him there until the trembling subsides. Thank you.